gonna read this book called Amelia Bedelia Road Trip. And then as you can see, she's holding a map. She's having her suitcase here, and like the bird is here, and her stuff is like, so her car, there's butterflies, a heart, rainbow, it's a star at the end. Wait, maybe it's a shooting star, maybe, but meh. And then there's a bird, and there's a squirrel, and there's a bunny. And then this is the wrong way, this is adventure way, this is the right way. And she's heading down the adventure way. So let's start. So we're gonna open to this blank page and just go whoop. Or if you want to see the table of contents, I think it's here. Yeah, it's here. Chapter 1, Roman holiday. Chapter 2, packing it in. Well, and so on. We're gonna start at chapter 1 if you can see it. This is a great book. So, we're gonna go on. And then we're gonna do this one too. Okay, let's move on. Roman holiday. Oh no. Oh my god, that was a great sneeze. Amelia Bedelia's father came home from work in a great mood. He kissed his wife. He scratched Amelia Bedelia's dog, Finally. It's actually Finally, but I changed it to Finally because I like it like that. So if you want to say Finally, then okay. In her favorite spot, right behind the ears. Amelia Bedelia was lying on the rug next to Finley, doing her homework. Amelia Bedelia's father knelt down next to her, but he didn't kiss her on the head as usual. He started tickling her. She squealed. He tickled Amelia Bedelia's most ticklish spot, right under her arms, so it's like in her armpit. Stop it, she shrieked, laughing louder, but he kept right on tickling. Mom, help! Yelled Amelia Bedelia. Her mother ran to her rescue. Amelia Bedelia's mom began tickling her dad at his most ticklish spot, right under the chin, like on his neck. He laughed and hollered, "Family tickling contest! Family tickle contest!" With one hand still tickling Amelia Bedelia, he tickled his wife right behind her knee, what I call the knee pit, which was her worst tickle spot. She began laughing uncontrollably. Ah ha 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 ha. It all collapsed on a heap on the living room floor, laughing and giggling and gasping for breath. And Finally raced around them, barking and wagging her tail. Amelia Bedelia's dad stood up and helped her mom to her feet. "Well, honey, thanks for the comic relief. That was a fun homecoming. Guess what, guys?" he said. "My boss gave me a bonus week of vacation for doing a good job at work." "Wow! Yay, Dad!" "Congratulations," said her mom. "You certainly earned it. What would you like to do?" "Well, I was thinking, how about we all go off to Rome?" "Yippee!" shouted Amelia Bedelia. "We're going to Rome." You'll find later that she thinks they're going to pizza and pasta roam in Rome. But he's thinking of to roam around, like in their car, going around, boom, driving around their own state, finding new things. We're going to Rome! Amelia Bedelia jumped up from the floor and kept jumping up and down, clapping her hands. She had paid enough attention in geography class to know that Rome was the biggest city in Italy, which was a country shaped like a boot. In Italy, everyone ate her favorite foods, like pasta, pizza, and pastries every single day. Amelia Bedelia hugged her dad. Then she grabbed her mom's hands and began dancing around the room with her. Finally barked and barked. Golly, said her dad. I didn't think you would get that excited. Haven't you ever been Roman? How could I be Roman? I was born in the United States. Amelia Bedelia's mother stopped dancing but held on to Amelia Bedelia's hands. Sweetheart, she said, where do you think we're going? She had a funny look on her face. To Rome, in Italy, said Amelia Bedelia. Italy? We aren't going to Rome, Italy. We're going to roam around. Around? Asked Amelia Bedelia. Where's around? Around where? Around here, said her dad, close to home. For now, we'll have to give Italy the boot. Her dad chuckled as her mother groaned. Amelia Bedelia was disappointed, and her dad's lame joke made her feel worse. She felt like giving him the boot. Oops, I burped. Excuse me. Sorry to let you down, sweetie, said Amelia Bedelia's mom. If we're going to Rome and Italy, I'd be really excited too. But Mom, what's Dad even talking about? Don't worry, said her mom. Sure, we'll have fun. Amelia Bedelia's mom made an Italian dinner to cure their disappointment. They had spaghetti and meatballs and crusty bread. They had salad with Italian dressing. We'll eat our salads last, because that's how they do it in Rome. Well, when going to Rome, do as the Romans do. Honey, said Amelia Bedelia's mom, if you make one more bad joke, you'll roam alone. Those are actually good jokes. After the dishes were done, Amelia Bedelia's father unfolded a road map and spread it out on the dining room table. He pointed to the spot on the map and said, "We are here." "I don't see us." "Our house is way too small to show us on this map. This little area is our town. See Main Street? This is Main Street. This tiny green square is the park in front of City Hall." Looking at the map made Amelia Bedelia feel dizzy. She felt like a bird flying higher than any other bird, looking down on everyone and everything. "I thought it might be fun to just drive around our own state," said her dad. "There are fun places to go and fun things to do right here." "That will be great," said her mother. "There's a lot to see in our own backyard." "What? First we're not going to Italy, and now we're not even leaving the backyard? What kind of dorky vacation is that?" Her parents explained that backyard couldn't be nearby. They would be traveling hundreds of miles, maybe 1,000 miles, before they returned home. That made Amelia Bedelia feel better and worse. At bedtime, Amelia Bedelia turned off her light, but she couldn't fall asleep. She was excited about their road trip and nervous too. She had never spent a week away from home before. Plus, she'd missed Fiddly. She wondered what would happen to them while they were away. What would happen at home that they would miss? That night she dreamed all sorts of crazy dreams. When she got up the next morning, she was super tired. Amelia Bedelia felt like she needed a vacation. Packing it in. Chapter 2, Packing it in. The day they left was bright and sunny. Her father was in the driveway, putting their luggage in the car. Amelia Bedelia dragged her bag outside. There were tons of bags piled next to the car. Enough for 2 families. Hey, let's pause and look. So you see this? This is what I do mostly. So you see this? We'll see which one is Amelia Bedelia. This should be Amelia Bedelia because she's running with it. So let's see. Yep. Can all of that really fit in our car? Asked Amelia Bedelia. It's no problem, said her father. It's part of the job being a dad, knowing how to pack a trunk. A trunk is definitely too big and heavy. You should use regular bags like Mom and I do. Good thinking, said her father. As he lifted her bag, an electrical plug and cord slipped out and dangled in the air. He set the bag back down. What have you got in here? Amelia Bedelia opened her bag and took out her desk lamp. You told me to pack a light. This is the only light in my room that isn't attached to the ceiling. You won't need that, said her dad. There will be lights where we're going. Then he pointed to her bag. Is that your backpack? It sure is, said Amelia Bedelia, holding it up for him to see. You told me to pack my backpack too. I meant to pack it full of stuff you want to take, not pack it inside your suitcase. Where's the checklist I asked you to make? Amelia Bedelia reached into her suitcase and pulled out a sheet of paper. It was covered in check marks. Making a list of checks got boring, so I switched sizes and colors to make it more interesting. Her dad shook his head and said, now hold everything. Hold everything? Said Amelia Bedelia. Dad, I can't pick up all this stuff. Honey! Hollered her father to Amelia Bedelia's mother. As Amelia Bedelia's mother took Amelia Bedelia back inside to help her repack. Amelia Bedelia, she said, in most families, dads pack cars, mom asks for directions, and kids ask, are we there yet? You'll see how it works. When they went back outside, the heap of luggage was neatly packed in the car. Amelia Bedelia handed her bag to her dad. Thanks, sugar. I've got just the spot. He slid it into an empty space. Now the trunk looked like one of those wooden puzzles that are impossible to put back together once you take them apart. Run and get Finley, okay? He said. You're not stuffing her in the trunk too, are you? Said Amelia Bedelia. Don't be silly, said her dad. There's no room. Amelia Bedelia knew her dad was teasing. Finley was going to a kennel called the Paw Palace. They were going to drop her off on the way out of town. At long last, Amelia Bedelia, her parents, and Finley were ready to leave. But when her dad backed out of the driveway, Amelia Bedelia felt the car go bump, bump as they drove over the uneven sidewalk and out onto the street. That bump feeling always meant that she was home. Suddenly, it dawned on Amelia Bedelia that she wouldn't feel that bump for a whole week. She was homesick already. And they dropped finally at the Paw Palace. As she got back into the car, Amelia Bedelia wiped her eyes. "Don't worry," said her mom. "Finally, we'll be fine. She'll get to hang out with other dogs, and your friend Diana is going to take her for walks, right?" "I know," said Amelia Bedelia, "and my friend Charlie is bringing his dog Prairie to visit. Plus, guess what? The Paw Palace even has a puppy pizza night." "Hey," said her dad, "the next time I'm in the doghouse, I'm going to check in there." "You're out of luck, honey. They won't take you until your house is broken." Amelia Bedelia burst out laughing. Even her dad had to laugh. He usually made the jokes in the family. This vacation was switching ones around. "Good one, Mom," said Amelia Bedelia, leaning forward to pat her mom on the shoulder. She glanced at the dashboard. Why is that little arrow pointing at the letter E?" Her parents looked at the gas gauge and then at each other. They both blurted out, "Didn't you fill the car with gas?" "You both can," said Amelia Bedelia. "There's a station right there." While her dad pumped the gas, Amelia Bedelia and her mother got out to buy a snack. They've gone barely a mile so far, but they were already hungry. This fun is about to begin," said Amelia Bedelia's mom. "Look, we're on the edge of town." Amelia Bedelia looked around for a cliff or a ledge, but things seemed pretty flat. She noticed a sign with the name of their town on it. Under the name was the word Pop and number 1007. "Mom, whose Pop is that?" Her mother smiled and said, "That Pop isn't short for someone's father. It's short for population. That number tells you how many people live in our town." Amelia Bedelia let out a low whistle. She couldn't believe it. Did that many people really live where she did? Amelia Bedelia ran back into the car and dug a crayon and her camera out of her backpack, then ran back to the sign. She made an X through the 7 and wrote the number 4 below, since the 3 of them would be out of town. Then she took a picture of it. When they returned from their vacation, she would bike over and change it back to 1007 again. "Ready to hit the road? Ready to hit the road?" asked Amelia Bedelia's dad. He was fiddling with something in the dashboard. "There, I set the odometer to 0 so we can tell how many miles we drive." He turned around and waggled his eyebrows at Amelia Bedelia. "If a word ends in o-meter, it counts things." The odometer measures our distance. The speedometer measures our speed. What does a thermometer do? It measures temperature to tell how hot or cold things are, said Amelia Bedelia. "Right," said her dad. "And who counts how many treats you'll have each day?" Amelia Bedelia looked at her mother for help, but her mom just looked back, shook her head, and shrugged her shoulders. "Give up," said her dad, as he began to chuckle. That's a mama-meter. Haha, that's a really funny joke, actually. Are we there yet? Asked Amelia Bedelia. Her dad looked back at her in the rearview mirror and said, "That's the best thing about roaming around." Because since we don't have a destination, wherever we are, we're already there. Amelia Bedelia had to think about that for a minute. Then she said, "Well, if we're there, what can I do for fun?" Her mother reached out into her travel bag, pulled out a book, and handed it to her. Amelia Bedelia flipped through it, but there were no comics, puzzles, or stories. "You should get your money back, Mom. All the pages in this book are blank." "I know, it's a journal. What's in it is up to you. You can write in it or draw in it or both. It'll be your record of our vacation, like a diary." Her mother handed her a brand new box of colored pencils too. "This feels like homework," said Amelia Bedelia. "Excuse me." "It can't be," said her dad. "You're not at home." She couldn't argue with that. "It'll be fun," said her mother. "Years from now, you can read it and remember what you were thinking and feeling." They turned onto a big highway and drove along with lots of other cars. They listened to the radio until the last station faded into static. Then Amelia Bedelia noticed the noise that became the soundtrack of their trip. The hum of tires on the road, accompanied by the wind rushing by her window. Sometimes they passed other cars and sometimes other cars passed them. Amelia Bedelia stared at the passengers. Where were they all going? Were they roaming too? A little boy stared back at her, then stuck out his tongue. She laughed and waved. He laughed and waved. He waved back and laughed too. Amelia Bedelia gazed at the houses they drove by. What were those people like? Did they have kids her age? Would they be friends if she knew them? Did her friends miss her? Did Finley miss her? Her daydream ended when her dad bellowed, "Adventure, here we come!" He took the next exit off in the interstate. He began singing, "Off we go into the wild green yonder." Amelia Bedelia was amazed. Her dad was so happy. He always sang the wrong words when he felt goofy. They had to drive much slower now because they were on a 2-lane road. They drove past old houses and farms and barns. They drove by cows and sheep. They crossed a bridge and parked. "We must be there," said Amelia Bedelia. "Exactly," said her mother. "Lunch will be served on that bank. On the bank of that stream." Amelia Bedelia grabbed their picnic lunch from the trunk and pulled out a blanket for them to sit on. "This will keep the ants from joining us." The ants from joining us. They talk like ants. "This will keep the ants from joining us." Too bad, thought me. Then the ants from joining us. Oh, she talks like ants. He said, "Too bad," thought Amelia Bedelia. She kind of wished that some of her aunts, uncles, and cousins had come along to keep her company in the back seat. It was times like this she really wished for a brother and really, really, really wished for a sister. At lunch, her mother made an announcement. I was up late last night and early this morning packing. I'm taking a nap. Amelia Bedelia, you're in charge. Then she closed her eyes and put a floppy hat over her face. Amelia Bedelia buckled herself in. Her father leaned over and pointed at the map. We are right here. His finger was on a picture of a tiny picnic table. Hey, said Amelia Bedelia, why didn't we sit at the table? It would have been better than the ground. There's no table, said her father. That picnic table is just a symbol. Look in that little box in the corner of the map. That's the key. Amelia Bedelia wondered if her dad needed a nap too. A symbol wasn't anything like a table. She knew that because she had tried playing the cymbals in the school band, and there was no box on the map. It was flat. Plus, who needs a key? You need a key to lock the car, but you don't unlock a map. You unfold it. Amelia Bedelia's father started the car and pulled back out onto the road. Well, so far so good. Not really, said her Amelia Bedelia. We haven't gone so far. It hasn't been so good. Ha ha, came a laugh from under the floppy hat. Amelia Bedelia looked at the map again. The road they were on went through a green patch. She looked up and saw trees on both sides of the car. She noticed a square in the corner of the map filled with tiny pictures. A school had a flag on top. Had a little flag on the top, just like her school did. A hospital was a red cross. A little envelope was a post office. The plane was an airport. Then she found each picture on the map itself. Maps are fun to figure out. I'm glad you think so. Do you see where we are? Yup. Amelia Bedelia put her finger on the map. She said, I've got us. Great. Can you figure out how to get us to Route 23? Amelia Bedelia looked at the map. Then she turned it sideways, then upside down, then right side up again. To prove what she was thinking, she let out a giant At last she shouted, I've got it! Keep going straight, then turn left onto this blue squiggly road, and it'll take you there. Said her father. He looked back at Amelia Bedelia in the rear view mirror. A blue squiggly line is usually just a river. Sure enough, just next to the blue squiggle picture was the word river. She was about to apologize when she noticed something about the road they were on. Dad, said Amelia Bedelia, what happens when the solid black line from the road changes into a brown line with dashes? She looked up as they passed a sign that read, pavement ends. Dirt road, bellowed her dad, as they skidded a bit on gravel, raising an enormous cloud of dust. Snorp. Amelia Bedelia giggled at the sound of her mother snoring. Her dad smiled and said, I can't believe she can sleep through this. They bounced along until they came to a stop sign. The road they were on ended, and another sign gave them a choice. They could turn left or right. This isn't on the map. Which way should she go? I have no idea, said her father. I vote for left, said Amelia Bedelia. I'm thinking right, said her father. Call it, said a voice under the hat. Heads, shouted Amelia Bedelia. Tails, shouted her father. So look, you can you can only see it like really close. So, okay, it's the, and then, yeah. So I'm gonna set it down now again, and she could always be counted on to make a decision. She pushed back her hat and flipped a coin in the air. She looked at both of them, then lifted her hand to reveal the winner. Tails it is. They turned right, and away they went to whatever might come next. As it turned out, right was wrong. They drove along for what seemed like hours. There were no more signs. There were no other roads to turn down. There were no houses. There was not one person to ask where they were. Just trees and grass and more trees. Now this, said Amelia Bedelia's father, is what I call roaming. And you, said Amelia Bedelia's mother, are a regular Daniel Boone. Daniel who? Daniel Boone was a famous explorer. Said her dad. He wore a coonskin hat while blazing trails across America. Well, I want to go back to this for a sec and just, yeah, you can see it's book number 3. Okay. We know. He sounds cool. Did all that blazing start forest fires? Just campfires, said her mom. Look him up when we get home. Now that's official homework, my dear. Amelia Bedelia got out her journal. She drew a picture of Daniel Boone. She drew a picture of a bumpy road. She drew ants on a blanket. She drew her lunch. She drew her own map key for important stuff she would like to find. Amelia Bedelia's father shook his head. Man, he said, I have no idea where we are. We know, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. I know, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. We're in the middle of nowhere. Well, if this isn't in the middle of nowhere, I'm sure we can see nowhere from here. As their car climbed the crest of a hill, Amelia Bedelia spied a farmer in his field and shouted, "A human being!" Honey, let's ask him where we are, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. Amelia Bedelia's father stopped the car, and her mother Now, let's quickly see this picture. So here's Daniel Boone. She thinks is Daniel Boone. And then this very bumpy road. Yum! Ants love my lunch. Map key. She wants to do this for important stuff she likes to find. Ice cream stand, toy store, and any place that sells French fries, cool clothes store, swimming pool, candy store, bike shop, skateboard park. Yeah, her name in a box. Her mother lowered her window. "Excuse me, sir," said Amelia Bedelia's mother. "We're lost." "I know," said the farmer. "The only reason anyone drives by here is because they aren't where they're supposed to be." Amelia Bedelia's mom handed the map and pointed to a town. Can you tell us how to get there?" The farmer squinted and shrugged. "Sorry, lady, can't get there from here." Amelia Bedelia's father laughed, but not like when something is funny. Her mother didn't know what to say, but Amelia Bedelia did. She leaned forward between the seats and asked, "Mr. Farmer, sir, If we were already there, how would we get back here? This time the farmer laughed, a real laugh. Well, little lady, that is a mighty interesting question. Without looking at the map, he began reeling off directions. Her parents nodded politely as he described signs and landmarks and twists and turns. So that brings you to right here, folks. Farmers finally said, "Excuse me now, I gotta get my cows up to the barn for milking." As he waved goodbye over his shoulder, he called out, "Come on, ladies!" A herd of cows trailed after him, the bells on their necks clanging. Amelia Bedelia's parents looked at the cows, then at each other. "Did you catch any of that?" "Not one word," said her mom. "I did," said Amelia Bedelia, handing them her journal. "I wrote it all down. If we go backwards, starting at the top and changing left to right, we'll get to the town." Amelia Bedelia's parents were silent. The truth was, they were dumbstruck. "That's okay. It's okay," said Amelia Bedelia said. "First, go straight for 2 miles, passing by a swamp. Turn left at the rock that looks like a teapot. Drive 3 miles, cross a railroad track. Turn right, drive for 8 more miles." Amelia Bedelia was looking at her journal, so she missed her parents gazing at her with pride. "So we are here. So you go 2 miles past this teapot rock, and then it has this." "Amelia Bedelia," said her mom, "I think you'll find your way in the world, no problem." "Yup," said her dad. "No doubt about that. You're a regular Daniel Boone." He began driving, following Amelia Bedelia's directions word for word. By the time they got to the little town on the map, it was almost dark. They checked into a motel and then went out for Chinese food. The best part of their meal was the fortune cookies. Amelia Bedelia read her fortune out loud. "Learn to fish and you will never go hungry," she said. Amelia Bedelia's mother read hers. "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." She took a bite of her cookie and said, "I'm glad we aren't walking. I feel like we drove 999 miles just today. What does yours say, honey?" Her father leaned back, cleared his throat, and read, "So far, so bad." Amelia Bedelia was amazed. Then he looked up and smiled. "You made that up," she said. "I sure did. Just like I'm making up this vacation. I'm sorry today wasn't any fun. I'll plan things better for tomorrow." "Aw, Dad," said Amelia Bedelia. "It wasn't that bad." "And we're together," said her mom. "That's worth a fortune." "Family hug!" yelled Amelia Bedelia. And the 3 of them hugged right there in the restaurant. As they left, Amelia Bedelia swept their paper fortunes into her pocket. She wrote an entry in her journal, and she signed her name with the date to make it official, and she taped her mom's 1,000-mile fortune on the first page. Then she read her dad's fortune. What it really said was, "Follow your dreams." That made her terrible about what she had just written. Her father's dream had been to go roaming, but things hadn't gone very smoothly. She promised to be nicer to him tomorrow. Everyone needs a dream, she decided, especially the people you love. She tucked her fortune and her dad's fortune into her journal for later. One horse town. Next morning, Amelia Bedelia's father was humming at breakfast. Good news, he said. The motel manager told me about a tiny town not far from here. It's historic, with lots of shops, good restaurants, and interesting things to see and do. Best of all, the town's celebrating its 300th birthday, so let's head right there. They arrived in no time and promptly got lost. Various streets were closed off with detours. Amelia Bedelia was certain that her dad was driving in a circle. This is a one-horse town, said Amelia Bedelia's father. People in fancy costumes, wearing powdered wigs, mingled on the sidewalks with people dressed as soldiers from a long time ago. There were real soldiers from today and regular people too. Amelia Bedelia spotted a marching band heading down one street, but she didn't see that one horse in town. I bet there was a parade or something, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. Honey, let's ask for directions. Amelia Bedelia's father shook his head. Some of these people are from hundreds of years ago. They wouldn't know where things are today. Oh, Daddy, Amelia Bedelia laughed. Then I will ask, said her mother. Before she could, her father headed down an alley. At last, he said, an open street. He turned onto it and wound up began a drum and bugle corps and about 30 girls waving flags and tossing batons into the air. Spectators on the sidewalks were waving at them. Amelia Bedelia waved back. What friendly people, she said. So right now we're gonna take a pause to see how much we've been reading. We've read so much, about half the book. Let me check it. Half the book. This is the right half of the book. Amelia Bedelia's mother turned to her father. Congratulations, honey, she said. You crashed a parade. Crashed? Said Amelia Bedelia. Did we hit anyone? Not yet, but the day is young. Amelia Bedelia looked out their back window. Sure enough, they were driving in the middle of a parade. They drove by cheering crowds under bunting and past popcorn carts while their drum and bugle corps played Yankee Doodle Dandy. I love that song too. Finally, the parade halted at a grandstand. Three boys wearing old-timey clothes opened their car doors and escorted Amelia Bedelia and her parents to a stage. A man who Amelia Bedelia thought must be the mayor shook their hands. On behalf of our fair hamlet, we welcome you as our 1 millionth visitor. The man bowed and handed Amelia Bedelia a giant key. You better keep your key, sir, said Amelia Bedelia. We can't come back tonight to lock up your town. Then she turned to her father and said, You're right, Daddy. This is a one-horse town. The smile on the mayor's face faded while her father's face got very red. Amelia Bedelia pointed across the square at a statue of a soldier on horseback. Is that the horse you meant? That's Major Andrew McClary, our town's founder, said the mayor, beaming again. I'm glad you gave your daughter a lesson in our history. Are you from around here? We are right here. Actually, said Amelia Bedelia's father. We're on vacation, traveling off the beaten path. So far, the path has beaten us, added Amelia Bedelia's mother. Well, if you don't accept this key, at least accept the key to my cabin up on Lake Largemouth. Oh, thank you, but we couldn't do that, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. Why not? Asked Amelia Bedelia. Her father smiled and nodded, raising his eyebrows. I'll convince you at our Founders' Day picnic, said the mayor. Come on, let's eat. They had a terrific time at the picnic. Amelia Bedelia ate cornbread, sausage, apple pie, and biscuits with honey. Everyone raved about Lake Largemouth. Before the picnic was over, Amelia Bedelia's father had the key to the cabin in his pocket. Enjoy yourselves, said the mayor. Now listen, if you run into any problems, there's a dock next door. That where you tie up your boat? Asked Amelia Bedelia. No, I've got my own dock, said the mayor. But Dr. Pilton is my neighbor up the lake. But really, the only thing you can get sick of up there is relaxing. All the faucets leak. So if you don't mind a drip, drip, drip at night, you'll sleep better than you ever have. Sold, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. Fish story. Lake Largemouth was not close, but it sounded like so much fun that the miles seemed to melt away. Amelia Bedelia found the lake on the map. It had tiny symbols of fish and a boat on it. Hey, those pictures mean that we can go boating and fishing. That fish is as big as the boat. Maybe my fortune could come true. When I was your age, said her father, I caught a really big fish. He took one hand off the steering wheel and held it out to show her the size. Amelia Bedelia's mother shook her head. When I met your father, that fish was half that size. It's grown bigger every time he talks about it. Amelia Bedelia's mother had tried to go fishing once too. She couldn't bear to kill a poor worm to catch a fish. That made sense to Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia's mom and dad started telling funny stories about their summer vacations, but when they were growing up. Before Amelia Bedelia knew it, they had arrived. Hey, Dad, yelled Amelia Bedelia. Was the fish you caught that big? Her parents' mouth dropped open in awe. Dead ahead was a largemouth bass as big as a semi-trailer. It was made of concrete and painted to look like a fish with scales and everything. With a real fish with scales and everything. It could have swallowed their car. Wow, said Amelia Bedelia's mom. That's how big your dad's fish will be if he keeps telling that story. Ha ha, said Amelia Bedelia's father. He wasn't really laughing, but he was sure smiling. He parked next to a grocery store. Let's go buy some staples. Staples? Wondered Amelia Bedelia. Why did they need a staple? Why did they need staples on vacation? Had he packed a stapler for paperwork? This was a general store, cozy and chock full of interesting stuff. Amelia Bedelia walked across the creaky wooden floor to pick out postcards while her parents shopped. When it was time to pay, she asked, "Where are the staples?" She asked. Right here," said her father, waving his hand over eggs, bread, milk, butter, coffee, tea, and sugar. Okay. Amelia Bedelia hoped that her father could relax so he wouldn't mistake food for office supplies. While her parents enjoyed a cup of coffee, Amelia Bedelia sat in a big rocker on the store's porch and wrote to her friends. A great sport. It was love at first sight. Amelia Bedelia thought the cabin was possibly the cutest cabin in the world. It was by the water, so they got a view of the lake from the breakfast room and both bedrooms upstairs. As they were putting the staples away, there was a knock at the door. "Howdy, neighbor," came a deep, friendly voice. "I've been expecting you. Stan Pilton's my name, but everyone calls me Doc." Amelia Bedelia's parents introduced themselves and Amelia Bedelia. "I'm glad to meet you, young lady. My granddaughter Audrey is visiting us. She may be a little older than you are. I'm sure you two will get along. She's a good sport." "Which one?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "Soccer, basketball?" Doc laughed. "Actually, it's fishing," he said. "I need to learn how to fish," said Amelia Bedelia. "I bet Audrey would be happy to teach you. You just missed her, though. She's out on a boat. In fact, she's fishing right around that bend." He pointed to where the shore of a lake curved around. How about we take the mayor's boat for a spin?" said her father. "We can go say hello." "Great idea," said Doc. "Come with me and I'll show you the ropes." Thanks. I grew up around boats," said Amelia Bedelia's father, "but I'd appreciate the help." They all went down to their dock and climbed aboard the speedboat. The speedboat tied up there. Everyone put on life jackets. Amelia Bedelia's father got behind the wheel and started the engine. Doc warned them about a big stump that was submerged about 50 yards off the dock. "Can't always see it," he said. "Be careful. Snapped the propeller off a boat last summer." "Thanks for the heads up," said Amelia Bedelia's father. As Doc cast them off, he hollered over the roar of the engine. "Amelia Bedelia, find Audrey. You can try something new and get your feet wet." "Excuse me?" yelled Amelia Bedelia. "Why would Doc want her to get her feet wet?" Doc's reply was lost in the roar of the motor. And Amelia Bedelia forgot all about wet feet as her dad steered carefully around the big stump. As she looked down into the clear water, she could see the stump. "Wait," she thought, "had something big moved down there, or were her eyes playing tricks on her, just like her ears?" Soon her dad was speeding across Lake Largemouth. Amelia Bedelia liked the cushions on the seats and the shiny brass instruments on the dashboard. "Do boats look like cars? Do boats work like cars?" she asked. "Of course not. We're on the water." "That's good, because this boat has one of those little windows with an arrow pointing at the letter E, just like our car. Amelia Bedelia's parents looked at the gas gauge, then at each other. Their eyes practically popped out of their heads. "Not again!" they yelled together. "Steer closer to land," advised Amelia Bedelia's mother. "If we run out of gas, we can swim for it." "Aye, aye, Captain," said her father. He turned hard, swooping as close to the shore as he could without running aground. The engine made a sputtering, coughing, wheezing sound, and then silence. "What boat did you grow up around?" "The Titanic," asked Amelia Bedelia's mom. "Too bad you didn't grow up around a gas pump, too. What are we going to do?" "Fear not," said Amelia Bedelia's father, picking up a boat hook with a long wooden shaft. "It's shallow enough to use this pole to push us around that spin away. Maybe we'll find something with gas to spare." Amelia Bedelia and her mother moved out of the stern to stay out of his way as he began pushing them along. "I know. Imagine you're in Venice, Italy. I'm your handsome gondola." Amelia Bedelia's mother looked at her, then rolled her eyes. Amelia Bedelia's father tied a handkerchief around his neck. "Oh, no." "No," said her mother. Maybe embarrassing." "This will help," he said, clearing his throat and singing, "Me, me, me, me." Then with the fakest Italian accent ever, he launched into "O Sole Mio," which just happened to be one of Amelia Bedelia's favorite songs, but with new lyrics he made up on the spot. I don't know that, I'm just guessing the tune. "Oh, Sole Mio, please serve me the pasta with extra sauce and a ton of cheese. Then bring me a plate of pastries with an espresso as strong as me." "Bravo, honey," said Amelia Bedelia's mother, laughing. Amelia Bedelia and her mother clapped loudly, hoping he would stop, but it only encouraged him. Amelia Bedelia's father began singing every Italian word he knew, making up a song that made no sense. "Buongiorno, gelato, at lasagna." With a giant shove, he pushed his boat around the bend and sang, "Ciao, minestrone." "Hey, be quiet," a voice hollered. "You're scaring the fish." The voice belonged to a girl sitting in the boat and fishing. "Hi, Audrey," Amelia Bedelia hollered back. "How did you know my name?" asked Audrey. As they drew nearer, they explained who they were. If you look really close, you can see that she has like a little pattern on her hat, like 2 stripes. Like, you can see it? Yeah. As they drew nearer, they explained who they were. Audrey blushed. "Sorry I criticized your singing," she said. "All I can think about is catching a big fish. I want to win the Lake Largemouth fishing contest." So we can take a pause to see how much. Okay. So I have an idea. So we kind of put it together and find, oh, this is the. And it's that one we already did. "I've never been fishing," said Amelia Bedelia. "I can show you how," said Audrey. "Can I hang on out with Audrey?" said Amelia Bedelia. "She could teach me how to fish." "Well, maybe for a bit," asked Amelia Bedelia's brother. "If you could spare some gas, we'll head back." "Sure," said Audrey. "Come on over, Amelia Bedelia." Amelia Bedelia's father used the boat hook to pull their boat right next to Audrey's. Suddenly, Amelia Bedelia stood up and started to step across. Just then, a gust of wind blew the boats apart. Amelia Bedelia had one foot on each boat. She was doing a giant split as the boats drifted farther and farther away from each other. "Whoa!" cried Amelia Bedelia, waving her arms around to keep her balance, but it was no use. Splash! Amelia Bedelia bobbed to the surface. She grabbed the side of Audrey's boat, and Audrey hauled her in like a big fish. "Amelia Bedelia!" yelled her father. "Sweetie!" yelled her mother. Her parents were frantic until they heard her laughing and sputtering. Then Amelia Bedelia did what her dog Finley did when she got wet. She shook herself all over, spraying Audrey with water. Now both girls were laughing, and so were Amelia Bedelia's parents. "Don't worry," said Amelia Bedelia. "The sun is drying me off. We'll be fine," said Audrey. "Tell Grandpa Doc to light the grill. We'll be back in an hour with a mess of fish for dinner." Audrey showed Amelia Bedelia the fishing rod and explained all the parts. "I didn't know fishing was so complicated," said Amelia Bedelia. My rod is pretty fancy," said Audrey. "They always bring along this pole with just a line, a hook, and a bobber. It's really fun to use." As she was talking, Audrey reached into an old can filled with dirt. She pulled back out a fat, wriggly worm. "Here's how to bait your hook," she said. "Ew!" said Amelia Bedelia, looking away. "Ew!" When she looked back, the worm was on the hook. Amelia Bedelia stared at it and said, "Sorry." Audrey swung the line with the hook and the bobber into the water with a plop, then handed the pole to Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia perched on a cushion where she could fish and dry off too. "What kind of fish do you think I'll catch?" said Amelia Bedelia. "Any kind," said Audrey. "Maybe catfish, walleye, sunfish, rainbow trout." Amelia Bedelia was wondering if she would ever figure out fishing when she felt a tug and her bobber vanished under the water. "You got one!" shouted Audrey. "What do I do?" said Amelia Bedelia. "Pull him in," yelled Audrey. Amelia Bedelia lifted her pole, and a fish was at the end of her line. It swung back and forth above them and between them until it hit Amelia Bedelia in the chest. She grabbed it with her free hand. "Gotcha," she said. "Nice fish," said Audrey. "You've got a good perch there." "It's very comfortable," said Amelia Bedelia as she sat back down on the cushion while Audrey unhooked her fish. Audrey was so busy taking fish off her hook and putting on fresh worms that she barely had a chance to fish herself. But she did tell Amelia Bedelia all kinds of interesting things about fish and how they like to hide in shady spots near roots and rocks, and how she once saw 5 big trout jump way out of the water at the exact same time. When they got back to the dock, Doc was waiting for them. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Your parents told me that you all ran out of gas. I should have checked. I could kick myself." "That might hurt," said Amelia Bedelia. "I can't kick myself, and I wouldn't even if I could, and neither should you." Doc's laughter turned into a whistle when Audrey held up the string of fish Amelia Bedelia had caught. "No, wow," he said. Now that's what I call getting your feet wet. All of me got wet. I fell in and got soaked. That's a good nickname for you, said Audrey. I'm going to call you Soaky. Maybe that's the secret to your beginner's luck. Fishermen are very superstitious, right, Audrey? Audrey nodded. That's why I wear Grandpa's lucky fishing shirt. Never wash it, said Doc. All of that luck will go right down the drain. Amelia Bedelia had been puzzled by Audrey's shirt. It was super old and pretty stinky. Amelia Bedelia pinched her nose and said, "P.U. If I'm soaky, then you're stinky." Audrey laughed. "Deal," she said. She held out her hand and they shook on it. Things got a whole lot stinkier when Doc showed Amelia Bedelia how to clean her fish. She was expecting soap and hot water. Instead, he used a knife to scrape off the scales, cut off the heads and tails, and scoop out the insides. Amelia Bedelia looked queasy. Audrey grinned. "Do you have the guts to try it yourself?" Amelia Bedelia surveyed the growing mound of fish guts and declared, There are plenty of guts around here. In case you don't know what guts are, they're insides, like intestines." Then she cleaned the rest of the fish herself, with advice from Doc. When she had just finished, Amelia Bedelia said, "Audrey, now I know why you called this a mess of fish. This is disgusting." Doc's wife came outside and introduced herself to Amelia Bedelia. "My name is Darlene," she said, "but everyone calls me Mrs. Doc." "Hi, Mrs. Doc," said Amelia Bedelia. She liked that name. It suited her. "I invited your parents over for a fish fry, so I'm glad you did your part and supplied the fish." Mrs. Doc put a huge cast iron frying pan on the grill. Then she set up a fish frying assembly line with the girls. Amelia Bedelia took a piece of fish and rolled it in with flour with a bit of salt and pepper. And then handed it to Audrey, who dipped it in a bowl of egg and covered it with breadcrumbs. Then Mrs. Doc slid it into the pan, where it sizzled until it was golden brown. As the last pieces of fish went in the pan, Amelia Bedelia's parents arrived. "What a lovely surprise," said Mrs. Doc. "I'm tickled pink that you are here at the lake." "Don't say tickle near my dad," warned Amelia Bedelia. "He might do it." Fortunately, her father had her hands full. He was carrying a salad, while her mother had brought her easy breezy appetizer that everyone raves about but takes no work at all. And Mrs. Doc took one bite and said, "This is awful good," thought Amelia Bedelia. Does she think it's awful or good? It can't be both, can it? "You've got to give me this recipe before you leave. It's really so yummy." "You should probably take off on Saturday so we can have a day to get back to normal." "Impossible," said Doc. "You can't leave Saturday. It's the day of the fishing contest and the crowning of Miss Big Mouth." Amelia Bedelia, you could get a crown for having a big mouth. I know a bunch of girls in my class who can be big could be Miss Big Mouth, she blurted out. They can't keep a secret for 5 seconds before they blab it to everyone. How do they decide which girl has the biggest mouth? Young lady, said Amelia Bedelia's mother, don't be rude. But Doc and Mrs. Doc couldn't stop laughing. Amelia Bedelia, we're so glad to have you next door, even just for a few more days. A big mouth isn't on a girl, Audrey explained. It's on a fish, a bass. Some people call it a large mouth or a wide mouth. These days, they usually call it a big mouth. Sounds like an excuse for a beauty contest, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. We don't need to stay for that. Oh, it's a big honor in these parts, said Doc. And the skill is involved in the fishing. If it was easy, would they call it catching instead? They would call it catching instead of fishing. Whoever lands the biggest big mouth wins $500. Amelia Bedelia's mother tilted her head. The winner of the fishing contest could be a man or a woman, right? Has Miss Big Mouth ever caught the biggest fish? Not yet, but maybe she will this year. I'm going to win, said Audrey. That's why I've been practicing every day. And I'm counting on Amelia Bedelia in my boat to bring me luck. And I'm counting on having Amelia Bedelia in my boat to bring me luck. And speaking of fish, said Mrs. Duck, supper is on. That night, Amelia Bedelia worked on her journal before going to sleep. She had lots to write about. She taped her fortune on a blank page. Learn to fish and you will never go hungry. She decided that if she had an older sister, which she knew was pretty much impossible, she'd like her to be like Audrey. Would Audrey like a younger sister just like her? What was Audrey going to do with $500? Life at the Lake. Chapter 10, Life at the Lake. So let's again take a pause to see how much we've been doing. I'm doing like boom, that much. So you pick up like the left side to see how much you're doing. Life at the Lake, Chapter 10. Amelia Bedelia and her parents adored the cabin. Every day, her dad talked about hopping in the car and roaming around. But there were so many fun things to do right where they were. Amelia Bedelia spent most of every day in the boat with Audrey. The good thing about fishing is that it leaves plenty of time for talking. They talked about school and friends and parents. They talked about movies and TV shows and books and animals. The biggest difference between that Audrey had a cat and Amelia Bedelia had a dog, and Audrey was older. But that didn't seem to matter at all. Talking about Finley made Oops. Whoops, that fell. It's okay. But there were so many fun things to do right where they were. Amelia Bedelia spent most of every day in the boat with Audrey. The good thing about fishing is that it leaves plenty of time for talk. I already read that part. Ha. Talk about Finley made Amelia Bedelia miss her, so she wrote a postcard to Diana. He says, "Hi Diana, thanks so much for walking Finley. I miss her so much. Today I saw a dog with really long hair. They said it was a Russian wolfhound, but he was in no hurry. Hug Finley for me, Amelia Bedelia." Dad and Mom's vacation schedule. 9 o'clock wake up, 9:30 breakfast, 10 o'clock, Dad fishes with Doc's mom, walks with Mrs. Doc. I fish with Audrey. 12 o'clock, lunch. 12:45, nap. 2 o'clock, ride bikes. 3 o'clock, get ice cream, trendy flavor each day. Dad's favorite, really rocky road with walnuts the size of boulders. My favorite, double chocolate cookie crunch. Double chocolate cookie dough crunch. Mom's favorite, triple berry smash. "3:30, read. 4:30, another nap. 6 o'clock, dinner. Oops, excuse me. Again, excuse me. 7:30, go to town and hear live music. 9:30, write in journal. 10 o'clock, Mom or Dad reads me to sleep. Fishing versus catching, Chapter 11. By Friday, the day before the big mass festival, their town was filling up with fishing vendors. Amelia Bedelia and her parents took a walk to the public dock to check out where the fish would be weighed and measured. Amelia Bedelia and Audrey went fishing later that morning. Audrey practiced casting with her rod and reel, while Amelia Bedelia practiced with the cane pole. Amelia Bedelia knew her dad admired how organized Audrey was. She was a planner with a checklist for everything she needed or might need. Her tackle box was filled with lures and spare reels. Audrey even had a strategy. "You know what, Sophie?" she told Amelia Bedelia. "I'm not going to fish until late in the day. I know where the big fish likes to hide. I don't want people to see my fish and try my spot, because then I might not win. I'm going to come in with a huge fish right at the end of the contest at 5 o'clock. It's my best shot." That night, Amelia Bedelia and her parents and Doc, Mrs. Doc, and Audrey went into town for pizza. It was Amelia Bedelia's dad's idea. He's jealous, Amelia Bedelia's mom announced as they studied their menus. He remembered that tonight our dog is getting pizza at the kennel, so he got a craving for it. "Puppy pizza day, sweet." Amelia Bedelia wondered what Finley would order as her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Doc, tried to outdo one another with how many weird toppings they could put on a pizza. They added olives, peppers, mushrooms, sausage, meatballs, zucchini, beans, onions, anchovies, pineapple, broccoli, and broccoli. Amelia Bedelia's father ordered his pizza Roman style, which meant a thin crust, but Amelia Bedelia's mother pointed out that the crust would break under the weight of his toppings. Amelia Bedelia and Audrey just stuck with extra cheese. A pitcher of lemonade arrived, and Doc proposed a toast. "Here's to fishing and catching. May you do both. To our fisher girls, Amelia Bedelia and Audrey," said Amelia Bedelia's mother. There was enough pizza left over to fill a whole box, which they took home for tomorrow's lunch. Stumped. Chapter 12. Stumped. On the day of the contest, Lake Larchmouth was swarming with boats. Doc and Amelia Bedelia's dad took off in the mayor's speedboat to try their luck. Later, Amelia Bedelia's mother and Mrs. Doc headed into town to shop. Before they left, Amelia Bedelia's mother gave her daughter a hug. Have fun. We'll be rooting for you. Take this leftover pizza with you for lunch. Audrey was unusually grumpy when she picked up Amelia Bedelia in the boat. She banged into the dock and dropped her spare reel overboard. Is something wrong, Stinky? Asked Amelia Bedelia. I'm doomed, said Audrey. Grandma Doc actually accidentally washed my lucky fishing shirt. Now it isn't lucky anymore. Yes. Amelia inhaled deeply. Yes, that amazing aroma that had hung over Audrey in the boat was gone. But you're really good at fishing. You don't need luck. She stepped into the boat and sat on her favorite perch. Fishing is mostly luck. They headed out full speed ahead, but they didn't get very far. Bang! The engine conked out. Oh no, said Audrey. Was that what I think it was? That's when Amelia Bedelia remembered the stump that Doc had warned them about. I can't believe this is happening, she said Audrey. She tried to start the engine again, but it was dead. She was close to tears. Oh, I planned for everything. Oh, why did Grandma Doc have to wash my shirt? We have oars. We can row, said Amelia Bedelia. But it'll take so long, said Audrey. The contest will be over before we get to my spot. Amelia Bedelia felt terrible. She should have remembered about that stump. If she could have kicked herself, she would have kicked herself. I know. Amelia Bedelia thought for a minute. I know, let's fish right here. There's nothing here, said Audrey, unless you want to catch that stupid stump. But Stinky, stupid's not a good word, so we'll just forget about that. But that bad stump. But Stinky, said Amelia Bedelia, didn't you tell me that bass like to hang out by tree roots? A stump that big must have hundreds of roots. There could be a big bass waiting down there. Audrey wiped her eyes. It's worth a try, I guess, she said. She picked up her rod and cast her favorite lure near the underwater stump. Her lure got snagged so badly that she had to break it off. The same thing happened with her second favorite lure. When she lost her third favorite lure and her reel got tangled, Audrey quit. Amelia Bedelia was out of ideas. Her stomach growled. She opened a pizza box. She offered a slice to Audrey, but Audrey was so angry that she took the slice of pizza and flung it as hard as she could. It skipped across the surface like a flat stone until it came to rest right above the stump. The piece of pizza floated like an abandoned ship. Suddenly, a whirlpool opened beneath it and inhaled the pizza. Amelia Bedelia and Audrey looked at each other. What was that? They both shouted. They both yelled. That was a ginormous big-mouth bass. Her eyes lit up and she grabbed her rod. Oh no, I'll never untangle this reel in time. Amelia Bedelia picked up her cane pole. Try this, she said. Amelia Bedelia sprinkled some water from the lake onto the last slice of pizza. This slice had a crazy combination of toppings. I hope Mr. Bass likes anchovies, as she carefully squished the pizza around the hook, forming a lump as big as a tennis ball. You cast it, Soki, she said. You've practiced all week. Okay, but then I'm handing it to you. Okay, said Amelia Bedelia, but then I'm handing it to you. Amelia Bedelia looked at the lake. Ripples were still moving out across the water. She imagined a giant bullseye. The center was where their pizza ball had to land. She leaned back, yelled, "Pizza pie!" and cast the bait dead center with a splash. He handed the bowl to Audrey. Nothing happened. Seconds passed. Still nothing. More nothing. And then nothing at all. When they looked at each other, then it happened. It was like a toilet had flushed in the lake. And the pizza disappeared into the biggest mouth Amelia Bedelia had ever seen on a fish. Audrey let the fish take the dough ball to the bottom. She leaned back hard to set the hook and snagged the fish. "Did you get it?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "I think so," said Audrey. She had, because then the only thing that kept Audrey from being yanked overboard was Amelia Bedelia, holding her tightly around the waist. The fish circled their boat one way and then the other. The fish went right. The fish went left, then jumped into the air, walking across the surface on its tail. Luckily, the bass tired out before they did. "Grab the cooler!" yelled Audrey. "How can you be thirsty at a time like this?" "Empty it and put it in the lake," said Audrey. Amelia Bedelia held the cooler overboard and let it fill with lake water. Then Audrey steered the fish into the cooler to trap it. The cooler was big, but the fish was huge. It barely fit. 1, 2, 3, lift, said Audrey. They heaved the cooler full of water and on into the boat. Water sloshed and the fish flapped, but they did it. And then they collapsed into giggles. Suddenly, Amelia Bedelia remembered the symbols of the boat and the fish on their map. This fish was almost as big as the boat. Her fortune had come true. Zzzz, entries, surprise, fish, 10 minutes. The sticky loudspeaker on the public dock told them that they were running out of time. "Hurry, Sophie!" shouted Audrey. They took turns rowing and holding the top on the cooler until they got to the public dock. "We were worried about you two. Hurry, it's almost over." If you look close at the big-mouth bass, you can also see the teeny ones, the teeny drops. Like these teeny drops on the bass. He heaved the cooler full of water. And fish into the boat. Water sloshed and the fish flapped, but they did it, and they collapsed into pieces. "Hurry, Sophie!" shouted Audrey. They took turns rowing and holding the top on the cooler until they got to the public dock. "We were worried about you two. Hurry, it's almost over." "Dad, help us!" said Amelia Bedelia as they struggled with the cooler. Amelia Bedelia's father and Doc each grabbed a handle and hoisted it onto the dock. "Phew," said Doc. "What's in here?" $500! said Amelia Bedelia. Miss really big mouth. Audrey and Amelia Bedelia threaded their way through the crowd with the help of Doc yelling, "Gangway, come through!" At last they arrived in front of the very official-looking judges, a big scale, and a tape measure on a table. The newly crowned Miss Big Mouth stood beside them, shimmering like a mermaid in a sparkly green cape and tiara. "Okay, young ladies," said one of the judges, "you're just under the wire." Amelia Bedelia looked up. She saw balloons shaped like fish, but no wires. The girls lifted the cooler lid together. "Whoa, ho, ho," sputtered Doc. Amelia Bedelia's father just opened and closed his mouth like a fish himself, but no words came out. A hush fell over the crowd. "Hold up your lunker, ladies, and let's let everyone have a look." As Audrey took the head, Amelia Bedelia grabbed the tail, and on the count of 3, they hoisted their fish up into the air. The crowd gasped. So did the judges. A photographer started snapping pictures for the paper. Her camera made annoying little flashes right before the big flash. Those flashes always made Amelia Bedelia close her eyes. That's what she did. But since a bass has no eyelids, the flashes startled him back to life. He flicked his hair hard and soared up, up, up into the air. "Grab him!" yelled Amelia Bedelia. "Come back here!" yelled Audrey. And come back he did, landing right on top of Miss Big Mouth's head. Her tiara popped up and came to rest on the head of that monster bass, crowning him king of the Big Mouths. That's when Miss Big Mouth gasped, then let out a scream he heard clear across the lake. She dove into the water. King Big Mouth landed with a big splashy plop and swam away for freedom, crown and all. Though absolutely everyone agreed that Amelia Bedelia and Audrey's fish had been the winner, it had never been officially weighed or measured. So the judges had to declare another winner. The lucky fishermen thanked the judges, shook their hands, and signed the prize check over to Amelia Bedelia. And Audrey. The next morning, Amelia Bedelia's dad packed up the car to go home. Doc, Mrs. Doc, and Audrey came over to say goodbye. "Sophie, look at this!" yelled Audrey. She held up a copy of Lake Largemouth News. On the front page was a picture of Audrey, Amelia Bedelia, and their bass. Even though Amelia Bedelia had her eyes closed, she knew she'd keep that photo forever. They all had a good laugh, but even so, the morning was a sad one. Amelia Bedelia's mother baked blueberry muffins for Doc and wrote down the recipe for her easy breezy appetizer for Mrs. Doc. Amelia Bedelia had picked a bunch of wildflowers for Audrey, and the girls arranged them in a pretty purple vase. Amelia Bedelia's dad fixed the leaky faucets in the cabin so when the Bears family came to stay, they could spend the whole time relaxing instead of working. Plus, they topped off the gas tank in their boat. As the grown-ups said their goodbyes, Amelia Bedelia and Audrey stood together on the dock and looked out at Lake Largemouth one last time. "Do you think our bass is back at home at the stump?" "Yup, he's wearing that tiara and ordering pizza." The thought of that made them both burst out laughing until they cried. Amelia Bedelia, "I wish I had a sister just like you. I was thinking the same thing. You'd be a great big sister." They hugged one last long, hard hug. Amelia Bedelia climbed into the car. She lowered the window and yelled, "Smell you later, Stinky! Stay dry, Soaky!" shouted Audrey. The cabin and Lake Largemouth disappeared in a cloud of dust as Amelia Bedelia's family drove off. Rome, sweet home. The drive Home was very different. There was no more roaming. There was no more getting lost. They got on the highway and zoomed. The road was smooth, so Amelia Bedelia worked on her journal. It was her longest entry yet. She wrote down everything she was thinking about. Audrey and Lake Largemouth and catching the biggest big mouth. After a while, Amelia Bedelia's father looked at her in the rearview mirror and asked, "How big was your fish?" Then Amelia Bedelia held up her hands to show him. Then she made it a bit bigger. Amelia Bedelia's mother smiled. Like father, like daughter. "Sweetie, you look tired. Try 40 winks." Amelia Bedelia was tired. She tried blinking her eyes 40 times, but that only made her more tired. She got up to 33 winks before she dozed off. When she woke up, her mom was driving past the pop sign for their town. Amelia Bedelia's crayon marks had washed away. That's okay, she thought. The population was right again. Now that they were back, they stopped at the Paw Palace to pick up Fiddly, who wiggled and wagged and kissed Amelia Bedelia again and again. Then they headed toward their house. As they turned into their driveway, and Amelia Bedelia felt the car go bump, bump over the uneven sidewalk. That's when she knew she was home at last. "Wow," said Amelia Bedelia's father, looking at the odometer. "Look at that. We drove 502 miles exactly." "Next time," said Amelia Bedelia, "let's roam for 1,000 miles, like Mom's fortune." That's the spirit, said her father. "You two can go. Just send me a postcard," said her mother, turning off the car. The daisies that had been in full bloom when they left were now all gone. But one. Her mother picked it. "Welcome home, honey," said Amelia Bedelia sad. "That was fun." "Same next year?" he asked. "Yay!" yelled Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia tucked the daisy behind her ear and smiled. Amelia Bedelia raced around the house to make sure everything was there. She ran into her room. Her dolls and stuffed animals stared back at her. They looked surprised to see her. Yet something was different. Something has changed. She glanced at herself in the mirror. Her hair was a little bit longer. She had grown a teensy bit. More freckles had bloomed across her nose to keep others company. But that wasn't it. When she looked into her own eyes, she realized that she was what had changed. She had taken the strip and would never be the same. Amelia Bedelia, who left a week ago, was not the Amelia Bedelia who had returned. That night, Amelia Bedelia took her journal out of her backpack. Thumbing through it, she could recall her whole vacation. The boring and the fun and the frustrating and fantastic parts. It was all there waiting for her. She taped the picture of Audrey, her, and their fish. Then she remembered her dad's fortune, the one from the Chinese restaurant. Now she had the perfect spot for it. She taped it to the top of the page. Amelia Bedelia read the fortune out loud. Follow your dreams. Then she wrote her shortest entry of all. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Amelia Bedelia turned out her light and went to sleep to work on her own dreams. That is the end of this book, and keep on reading. We'll see you next time. Bye.